A knock in the storm. The needle hissed across the Ray Charles disc, a soulful counterpoint to the cozy domesticity of Tom's cabin, the scent of wood smoke, a simmering pot of chili. Buddy, his golden retriever, punctuated the music with rhythmic tail thumps against the floorboards, a low, guttural purr rumbling in his chest. It was a Tuesday evening that whispered of contentment, a familiar solace Tom had carefully cultivated since losing Lisa 5 years prior. Just him, Buddy, and the hushed embrace of their mountain sanctuary. Then the wind escalated, a banshee wail against the panes. Fat raindrops began to pelt the glass, quickly building to a deluge. He piled another log on the fire, anticipating the creeping damp. A sharp knock shattered the peaceful scene. Buddy, startled, emitted a sharp bark that bounced off the log walls. Tom's brow furrowed. He hadn't anticipated visitors, least of all in this tempest. Gripping a fireplace poker, a reflex rather than an act of defiance, he approached the door with caution. What greeted him was a tableau of disarray. A woman stood on his porch, her dark hair slicked to her scalp by the downpour. 2 small girls, miniature versions of each other in drenched parkas, huddled against her, their eyes wide with apprehension. They trembled visibly, their faces ashen. "Please, can we come in?" she pleaded, her voice almost lost to the gale. "Just for a little while." Without hesitation, Tom ushered them inside. "Of course. Get in, get in. You're soaked through." The woman, appearing to be in her late 20s, guided the girls forward. They clung to her like birds, their gazes flitting around the unfamiliar interior. A dark contusion marred her cheek, a shocking purple against her pallor. The girls were twins, mirror images. One peeked shyly from behind her mother, clutching a worn plush rabbit, the other cradled a small, floral suitcase. "I'm Sarah," the woman managed, her voice shaking. "And these are Lily and Daisy." "Tom," he responded, offering a genuine smile. "I'm Tom. And this," he indicated the tail-wagging dog, "is Buddy. He's gentle, I promise." As if understanding, Buddy ambled over, nudging Lily's hand with his cold, damp nose. A giggle escaped her, a fragile sound that eased the tension. Tom hurried to a linen closet, grabbing thick towels. "Here, dry yourselves. Get by the fire and warm up." He watched as Sarah steered the shivering twins toward the hearth. Once they were somewhat dry, he offered mugs of steaming cocoa. As they gratefully accepted the drinks, Sarah began her story. We were turned out," she confessed, her voice breaking. "My in-laws, they own the house we lived in. My husband, he died last year. Afterwards, they didn't want us there anymore." Tears surfaced, threatening to spill. "They said I wasn't fit to carry the Miller name. That Lily and Daisy were just a drag." A wave of indignation washed over Tom, a paternal protectiveness surging within him. How could anyone display such callousness? "They gave us until today," Sarah whispered, her voice threadbare. "I didn't know where to go. I saw your light." Lily, the twin with the rabbit, looked up at Tom, her eyes filled with quiet desperation. "Are we safe here?" Tom knelt, meeting her gaze directly. "You are safe here," he assured her, his voice imbued with conviction. "You are absolutely safe. Shelter from the rain. Come on in, you'll catch your death out here." Tom's voice, rough-edged but kind, sliced through the wind's howl. He stood framed in the doorway, a silhouette against the warm light spilling from his living room. Sarah hesitated, the twins clinging to her legs like barnacles to a hull. She was soaked to the bone, the flimsy raincoat offering no real protection against the downpour. "Are you sure?" she whispered, her voice tight with a nervousness that had become a constant companion. "We don't want to impose." Tom scoffed, a puff of white in the frigid air. "Impose? Nonsense. Get inside before you turn into popsicles." He stepped back, gesturing with a large, calloused hand. The warmth hit them like a physical embrace. The smell of wood smoke and something savory, maybe stew, filled Sarah's nostrils. The twins, Lily and Rose, peeked out from behind her legs, their eyes wide and wary. Buddy, Tom's golden retriever, padded over, tail wagging tentatively. He sniffed at the girl's outstretched hands, then nudged Rose's palm with his wet nose. Rose giggled, a small, fragile sound that made Sarah's heart ache. "Upstairs, first door on the right," Tom said, already moving towards the kitchen. "Towels are in the bathroom. Get those wet clothes off, and I'll find something for you to wear. Stew's almost ready." The room was small but cozy. A patchwork quilt covered the bed, and a small lamp cast a warm glow. Sarah quickly stripped the girls, shivering as the cold air hit their skin. She rubbed them down with the soft towels, then wrapped them in the oversized t-shirts Tom had provided. They looked like tiny, lost sailors in the billowing fabric. Downstairs, the aroma of stew was even stronger, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. Tom had set the table with mismatched plates and silverware. Buddy lay patiently by the girl's feet, his tail thumping softly against the floor. Lily, usually the more reserved of the two, tentatively reached out and stroked his fur. "He likes you," Tom said, placing a bowl of stew in front of each of them. "Buddy's a good judge of character." Sarah watched as the twins ate, their faces lit by the warm glow of the oil lamp. They ate slowly, deliberately, savoring each bite. It had been a long time since they had a hot meal, a safe place to be. Sarah's own stomach churned with anxiety, but she forced herself to eat, needing to be strong for her daughters. Later, tucked into the warm bed upstairs, the twins finally drifted off to sleep. Sarah lay beside them, listening to the rain batter against the windows. The house creaked and groaned in the wind, but it felt solid, secure. Buddy lay on the floor by the bed, a furry sentinel guarding their slumber. A wave of exhaustion washed over Sarah, but beneath it, a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. New beginnings. The school bus, a behemoth of yellow, swallowed Lily and Rose whole. Sarah watched it rumble away, a knot of anxiety twisting in her stomach. It loosened only slightly when she saw Tom's reassuring wave from the porch. "They'll be fine," he said, his voice a low rumble as he came to stand beside her. "Mrs. Davison is a saint. And those two? They could charm a badger into sharing its honey." Sarah managed a smile. I worry." "Natural," Tom squeezed her hand, his touch grounding. "But they're strong, Sarah. Just like their mom." The days settled into a rhythm. The twins, bubbling with stories of new friends and classroom adventures, filled the afternoons with a joyful chaos Tom had only dreamed of. Lily, the bolder of the two, recounted tales of playground politics and spelling bee triumphs. Rose, ever the observer, offered quieter observations, noticing the small details: a ladybug on a flower, the way Mrs. Davison's glasses slipped down her nose when she read aloud. Sarah, meanwhile, found a haven in the fragrant warmth of the Sweet Spot, the local bakery. Mrs. Higgins, a woman whose smile lines mirrored the swirls of icing on her cupcakes, had taken her on as a part-time assistant. The aroma of cinnamon and sugar, the soft give of dough beneath her fingers, the quiet hum of the ovens, it was a balm to her bruised spirit. Each perfect pie crust, each delicately frosted cake, was a small victory, a testament to her growing confidence. One evening, Sarah returned from the bakery, her cheeks flushed with flour and the scent of vanilla clinging to her clothes. Tom was in the living room, reading aloud to the twins, his voice animated as he narrated a story about a brave knight and a mischievous dragon. The scene, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, stole her breath away. "Mommy!" Lily shrieked, launching herself into Sarah's arms. Rose followed, her embrace gentler but no less enthusiastic. "How was school, my loves?" Sarah asked, burying her face in their soft hair. "Amazing!" Lily exclaimed. "I got a gold star for my reading. And I made a friend named Daisy," Rose added shyly. "She likes to draw unicorns." Later, after the twins were tucked into bed, Tom found Sarah in the kitchen, humming softly as she washed dishes. "You seem happy," he observed, leaning against the doorway. Sarah turned, her eyes shining. "I am, Tom. I really am. Thank you." He crossed the room and cupped her face in his hands. "Thank you, Sarah, for bringing so much light into this old house." He kissed her then, a gentle, tender kiss that promised a future filled with warmth and hope. The kitchen window, reflecting the soft glow of the porch light, framed their embrace, a silent witness to the blossoming of a new beginning. The scent of sugar and vanilla lingered in the air, a sweet promise of the life they were building together. Whispers in the wind. The whispers started subtly, like the rustling of dry leaves skittering across the town square. Sarah first noticed it at Mrs. Gable's general store. A hesitation in Mrs. Gable's usually bright smile, a lingering look at the twins before she offered them each a stale peppermint stick. "Growing fast, aren't they?" she'd said, her voice tight. They'd always resented her, seeing her as an outsider, someone beneath their precious Thomas. Now that Thomas was gone, their resentment had festered into something darker, something that threatened to engulf her and the twins. She'd refused their paltry settlement, knowing it came with strings, relinquishing custody of Lily and Rose. They wanted the twins, not out of love, but out of spite and a twisted sense of entitlement. Back at the farmhouse, the wind seemed to carry the whispers with it, swirling around the eaves, scratching at the windows. Sarah bolted the door, a shiver tracing its way down her spine despite the warmth of the afternoon sun. Lily and Rose, oblivious, were playing in the dust near the barn, their giggles echoing in the otherwise silent yard. She watched them, her heart aching. They were so innocent, so trusting. How could she protect them from the venom that was being spewed in town? She thought of Caleb, his strong hands, his quiet strength. He'd offered her safety, a haven. But even his protection couldn't completely shield them from the insidious whispers. That evening, after the twins were asleep, Sarah sat on the porch swing, listening to the crickets chirping their mournful song. A lone car passed on the road, its headlights briefly illuminating the dusty yard. She could almost feel the eyes of the townspeople on her, judging, questioning. The whispers had taken root, poisoning the community against her. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling utterly alone. The promise of a fresh start, the hope she dared to nurture, seemed to be withering under the weight of the Millers' lies. They were determined to take her daughters, and the town, it seemed, was willing to let them. Tears pricked at her eyes. She wouldn't let them win. She had to find a way to fight back, not just for herself, but for Lily and Rose. Shadows of doubt. The whispers followed Lily and Rose like stray dogs, nipping at their heels. Witches spawn, one boy hissed during recess, shoving Rose into the muddy ground. Lily, usually the quiet one, roared, launching herself at him with surprising ferocity. It took 2 teachers to pull them apart, both twins sobbing, covered in dirt and shame. Sarah's hands trembled as she iced the day's special lemon poppy seed. The bakery, usually a haven of sweet smells and cheerful chatter, felt suffocating. Mrs. Higgins, the owner, cleared her throat. "Sarah, dear, could you maybe wear a hat? Just to, be hygienic." Sarah knew it wasn't about hygiene. It was about hiding the fiery red hair she shared with her daughters, the hair that had become a symbol of the rumors swirling through town. The lemon scent turned bitter in Sarah's nostrils. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Of course, Mrs. Higgins. Tom saw it all. He saw the bruises blooming on Lily's arm, the haunted look in Rose's eyes, the defeated slump in Sarah's shoulders. He lingered outside the bakery, watching Sarah through the window. She looked smaller somehow, almost translucent as she piped frosting onto a cake. He imagined the weight of the town's judgment pressing down on her, crushing the light she'd only just begun to rediscover. He wanted to burst in, to defend her, to scream at everyone to leave them alone. But what good would that do? He was just one man against a tide of gossip and prejudice. Later, he found Lily and Rose sitting on the porch swing, silent tears tracking down their faces. He knelt, pulling them close. "Hey," he said, his voice thick with unshed tears of his own. "Don't let them get to you. They're just ignorant." Rose sniffled. "But what if they're right, Mr. Tom? What if we are cursed?" Sarah appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but blazing with fierce protectiveness. "Don't you ever say that," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You are not cursed. You are beautiful, strong, and loved. And I will not let anyone, tell you otherwise." Tom watched them, the 3 of them huddled together, a small island of defiance in a sea of doubt. He felt a surge of protectiveness so potent it almost choked him. But beneath it, a chilling fear began to grow. He'd thought he could shield them, protect them from the shadows of the past. But the shadows were darker, more pervasive than he'd imagined. And he didn't know how much longer he could hold them back. Taking a stand. Dried tear tracks, like faint chalk lines, marked Sarah's face. Sensing the somber air, the twins burrowed against her legs, their innocent eyes reflecting the golden light spilling into the kitchen. Tom knelt, gathering them close. He felt the faint tremble that racked Sarah as she watched, her focus lost somewhere beyond the room. Enough was enough. He refused to stand by and watch her crumble. Those venomous relatives wouldn't dictate their fate. "I'm going to town," he declared, the steel in his voice surprising even him. "I need to make a call." Sarah's gaze snapped to his, filled with unspoken questions. "Tom, what are you planning?" He squeezed her hand, offering reassurance. "I'm going to challenge this, Sarah. We will challenge this." Echoing his stance, the twins unconsciously straightened, tiny chests puffed out with newfound bravery. The town's sole legal practice occupied a modest building. Though its paint was chipped with age, a vigorous rosebush scaling its trellis hinted at the compassion within. Inside, he found Mrs. Abernathy, a woman whose kind eyes peered out from behind thick lenses, surrounded by stacks of well-worn law books. He laid out the situation, the injustice a bitter tide rising in his throat. He recounted the accusations, the calculated smear campaign against Sarah, the cruel attempt to sever. "This will be a difficult fight. They possess resources, clout. We need concrete evidence, something to undermine their position. Do you have any proof of their hostility, any record of threats or coercion?" Tom shook his head, frustration mounting. They were far too clever. It was all subtle, insidious. A slow erosion of her self-belief, veiled jabs, a tightening of control. "We'll need a creative approach," Mrs. Abernathy mused, tapping her pen against her lips. "Perhaps we can subpoena their financial documents. Look for discrepancies, concealed assets. We can also explore the avenue of emotional distress. The twins being separated from their mother, that could resonate powerfully. The mention of his daughters solidified Tom's resolve. He would move heaven and earth for them. Whatever it requires, he stated, meeting Mrs. Abernathy's steady gaze. I'm committed. Stepping out of the office, he was met by long, stretching shadows from the setting sun. A surge of determination coursed through him, eclipsing the fear and doubt. He couldn't predict what lay ahead, but he knew one thing with unwavering certainty: he wouldn't let them prevail. He would fight for Sarah, for the twins, for their rightful chance at a life free from the oppressive shadow of her past. Unveiling the truth. Sunbeams fractured by the Venetian blinds illuminated dancing specks of dust in Abernathy's stuffy office. The lawyer sifted through paperwork, each rustle amplified in the quiet space as Tom squirmed in the creaky leather chair. A dry cough preceded Abernathy's grave pronouncement. This is it, Tom. The land deeds. Note this clause: inheritance hinges on Sarah and the girls remaining in Harmony Creek. But a subsequent filing, mere weeks after your wife's bereavement, amended the original document. That restrictive clause? Erased. Courtesy of Arthur and Mildred Pruitt. Tom's jaw clenched. They were scheming. They knew Sarah would be inclined to leave, and they plotted to capitalize on it. Abernathy inclined his head. Precisely. Likely counting on her overwhelmed state to prevent scrutiny. A textbook case of exploiting the vulnerable, in my opinion. He slid another document forward. And this, a series of electronic transfers from the Pruitt's coffers into a Cayman Islands shell company. The timeline synchronizes with the legal machinations. Circumstantial on its own, but alongside the deeds, it's a damning portrait of a calculated con. Damn them to hell, Tom growled, a chilling intensity surfacing. He raked his fingers through his hair. The town meeting is tomorrow. This is enough to bring it to light. It's incriminating, Tom. Justification for an official inquiry, certainly. But swaying the town? That rests on your shoulders. They hold the Pruitts in high regard, for reasons I can't fathom. You must expose their treachery. Back at the cottage, the sweet fragrance of lilac permeated the air, a soothing counterpoint to Tom's inner turmoil. Sarah swayed gently on the porch swing, softly murmuring as she plaited Lily's hair. Daisy, ever the inquisitive one, pursued flitting butterflies in the overgrown garden. The scene struck him with the force of a gut punch. He was safeguarding their very existence. He presented the documents to Sarah, his voice catching slightly. She absorbed the information, her brow knitting together in concentration. As comprehension dawned, her eyes widened, reflecting a blend of shock and burgeoning indignation. They did this deliberately? Kneeling before her, Tom clasped her hands in his. They did. But we will confront them, Sarah. I vow it. We'll expose their deceit. A spark of hope flickered in Sarah's gaze, pushing back the shadows that had clung to them. A nascent, fragile ember, but present nonetheless. What will you say? Tom tightened his grip, his gaze unwavering. I'll lay bare the truth. The Pruitts' avarice, their manipulations, their callousness. And I will remind them that Harmony Creek is a sanctuary, a community that safeguards the vulnerable, not victimizes them. He rose, squaring his shoulders, resolve hardening his features. Inside, he discovered a notepad and pen resting on the kitchen table. He began to write, the words pouring forth, fueled by righteous outrage and fervent love. As twilight painted the sky with fiery hues, Sarah observed him from the porch, a hopeful curve gracing her lips. For the first time in what felt like eons, she detected a note of optimism, a fragile belief that perhaps, just perhaps, their fortunes were about to shift. A town united. The town hall air vibrated with a palpable tension. The aged wooden floorboards creaked a mournful chorus beneath the weight of the assembled townsfolk. Sarah, perched near the rear, felt her pulse hammer a frantic rhythm in her chest, her girls tucked protectively on either side. Within her, a nascent hope trembled like a fledgling's wing. Tom, positioned at the makeshift platform, placed a time-worn leather briefcase at his feet. He cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping across the sea of faces, each a canvas painted with curiosity, apprehension, and, she hoped, a spark of empathy. Thank you for attending, he began, his voice resonant, filling the expectant silence. I understand there's been conjecture, damaging accusations, and I intend to clarify matters this evening. He opened the briefcase, carefully withdrawing the documents within, bank statements, digital correspondence, scribbled notes. This is evidence. Irrefutable evidence that Sarah was systematically isolated and preyed upon by the Barlows. He displayed a bank statement. These withdrawals, cloaked as family ventures, were, in truth, bleeding Sarah dry. A wave of murmurs washed through the room. Mrs. Henderson, famed for her barbed remarks and piercing gaze, leaned in, her expression softening with dawning comprehension. Tom pressed on, his voice gathering conviction. These emails reveal a calculated campaign to erode Sarah's self-worth to convince her of her supposed incompetence. They sought control of her inheritance, and they were prepared to dismantle her life to achieve it. He paused, his eyes finding Sarah's. They wanted to depict her as unstable, to wrest her children from her care. He presented the final piece of incriminating evidence, a note in Mrs. Barlow's unmistakable handwriting outlining the scheme to poison the town against Sarah with gossip and half-truths. The ensuing silence was absolute. Then a collective gasp, a gradual awakening on their faces. Old man Fitzwilliam, previously the most outspoken critic, rose to his feet, his face crimson with shame. I erred grievously, he choked out, his voice thick with remorse. We all did. A torrent of voices erupted, like floodwaters breaching a dam. Apologies, expressions of deep regret, and offers of assistance inundated the hall. A knot of women approached Sarah, their countenances etched with genuine sorrow. Mrs. Henderson clasped Sarah's hand, her grasp surprisingly gentle. We should have been wiser, dear. We allowed ourselves to be misled. Little Lily, sensing the transformation in the mood, tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, are the nasty people gone now? Sarah enfolded her daughters in a tight embrace, tears coursing down her cheeks. Yes, my darling, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. They're gone. The town, once fractured by distrust and prejudice, now stood as one, united in their collective shame, their bitter regret, and their steadfast resolve to redress the injustice they had perpetrated. United in their unwavering support for Sarah and her children. The atmosphere, formerly suffocating with judgment, now thrummed with renewed optimism, a pledge of a brighter future on the horizon. Blooming miracles. The gavel slammed down, each thud echoing the finality of Judge Thompson's words. Guilty on all counts. Sarah barely registered the gasps rippling through the courtroom. Her focus remained locked on her in-laws, their faces crumpled with a mixture of disbelief and fury. The years of manipulation, the financial exploitation, the calculated cruelty, it was all finally catching up. The twins, nestled securely on either side of Tom, seemed blissfully unaware of the gravity of the moment, their tiny hands clutching his. The details of the legal proceedings blurred into a tiresome drone. Sarah knew that justice, though slow, was being served. What truly mattered was the future, a future she was now free to shape. The idea for the flower shop bloomed unexpectedly. A casual conversation with Mrs. Gable, the kindly owner of the local bakery, sparked it. You always had such a green thumb, Sarah, Mrs. Gable had said, admiring the small posies Sarah arranged on the bakery counter. Remember those roses you used to grow? The whole town envied them. The memory buried beneath layers of insecurity resurfaced. She did love flowers. They represented beauty, resilience, and the promise of new beginnings. With Tom's unwavering encouragement and the twins' enthusiastic, if somewhat messy assistance, Sarah's blooms began to take root. The townsfolk rallied around her. Mr. Abernathy, the retired carpenter, crafted rustic shelves. Mrs. Peterson, a retired art teacher, painted a vibrant sign. Even Buddy, the ever-present golden retriever, seemed to understand his role as a furry shop greeter. The shop opened with a splash of color and fragrance. Bouquets overflowed with sunflowers, lilies, and, of course, Sarah's signature roses. The air hummed with the gentle buzz of bees drawn to the nectar-rich blossoms. Sarah thrived amidst the beauty she created, her confidence blossoming alongside the flowers. Tom was a constant presence, his quiet strength a steady anchor. He'd stop by every day after work, Buddy trotting faithfully at his heels to help with deliveries or simply offer a reassuring smile. The twins adored him, their laughter filling the small shop with warmth. They called him Papa Tom, a name that resonated deeply within Sarah's heart. One evening, after closing, as Sarah swept up stray petals, Tom lingered. He watched her, his eyes filled with an emotion she was only beginning to understand. He stepped closer, gently taking the broom from her hands. Sarah, he began, his voice soft. I never imagined finding this. Finding you. Finding us. He confessed his feelings, words tumbling out, honest and heartfelt. Sarah listened, tears welling in her eyes. She felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years, a sense of belonging, of finally being home. "I love you, Tom," she whispered, the words barely audible. He pulled her into his arms, his embrace warm and secure. In that moment, surrounded by the fragrant blooms of her shop, Sarah knew that miracles weren't just things you wished for. Sometimes, they blossomed right in front of you. They had a family now, imperfect perhaps, but filled with a love that was as strong and vibrant as the flowers that surrounded them. And Buddy, of course, was part of it all, tail wagging, a furry, four-legged testament to the power of love and second chances.